I'm Bill, and I'm the host of the Late to Grid podcast, and I'm back in the Atomic Autosports studio to bring you a super exciting episode where we're going to talk about goal setting, having your best year, and stay tuned. At the end of this episode, I have a special offer for you. Today, I'm joined by Michael Ribas, who is Exceed Transition Coaching. Michael, you've been on the podcast before. You are my coach, and it's so great to have you here in January 2025 to help the listener get the best year yet.
Well, thanks so much, Bill. It's always good to spend time with you here in your studio. And New Year's, so much fresh energy, so much potential, so many things we all want to do. So I'm happy to be able to spend a little bit of time with you and hopefully be of service to some of the great Late to Grid listeners.
Awesome. Well, I want to kick it off by just reminding everyone how we met. And it was through networking, virtual networking online. I put a request out for basically this topic. I want to connect up with someone who does coaching of individuals, not necessarily drivers, business people, but have a motorsports bend to them. And your name came up. You and I talked for a bit. We hit it off. You have a Penske background, which I'm a big fan of. Remind the listener, walk us through how you got to be a coach. How did this all come about?
Well, like a lot of things in life, it seemed like it pushed me there as much as I went on my own. But I was very fortunate, as Bill mentioned, to have a wonderful motorsport career. Spent over 20 years in top motorsports, IMSA, NASCAR, IndyCar. Was able to do some really cool stuff. Along the way, people seemed to gravitate towards me in times of need for some advice. Sometimes they pick me up, and often they walk away always feeling better. But they would say, "You should be a coach." And I'd hear this for years. Actually, my last boss, the VP of Marketing Communication for Penske, told me, "So you should be a coach." So I thought, maybe I should start listening to that voice because it keeps showing up. So I started looking around and, finding ways. How do you become a coach? How do you become a coach? And a couple things I tried, they were junk, quite frankly. But, I learned what didn't work. But eventually I found a certification process and somebody that had a system set up that would allow me to begin to bring true value to people's lives by just helping them get out of their own way. And started coaching after I got out of racing. And I was, like Bill mentioned, fortunate enough to run into him about 8 years into my coaching. So we've been together for a couple of years now, and it's been great.
Yeah, no, it certainly has. So we're at the beginning of a year. For a lot of people, that's the off season. They're getting ready for the season. They want to have their best year on track, and that could be autocross. It could be a time trial driver. It could be a road racer, someone that's doing track days. What advice do you have for someone to prepare in the off season to make sure that they have their best season yet?
Well, hopefully all of those people be really clear about, why you're doing it. And if you're anything like me, you get behind the wheel of a car and you can just drive as fast as you can around a given place. That is some of the most fun you can have. So if it's fun that you want, remember to keep that spirit going into it. And from there, if you've done this before, then look back and see, what happened last year, what went well and what didn't go well, and then decide hopefully just one area that you want to improve. It's very tough as a privateer to fix it all because usually it's you and a friend, maybe you and a couple of close friends. So just choose the area that you want to focus on. That's probably the best thing to do to make overall improvement.
I think that's great because you can't go out in a session and improve your steering, improve your braking, improve maybe tire wear, try to get better fuel economy out of the session. You have to work on one thing. And once you master that, is what you're saying, then you can move on to the other part.
Yeah, absolutely. And for, obviously there's a lot, depending on where you're at, your car, hopefully a lot of the cars are, if they're spec, hopefully there's not a lot of change you can make to it, a lot of variability there. Ideally, a lot of people want to go right to the car. They want more power, more this, more that. And it could be that, quite frankly, most of us, myself included most of the time, we have more car than we have driver. So really work on, okay, where am I a driver? Am I truly getting everything out of my car? And if so, now it's time to work on the car. If your car's got some room in it, and there's a little bit of ego here, there's a little bit that might not want to admit that, we are not enough driver to keep up with whatever car we have. But even some, a factory car that you can turn into a race car to NASA event, whatnot, those things have a lot of engineering into them. They put a lot of time, a lot of very smart people put that car together and engineered it so it would do its job. most of us don't have the same amount of effort or help into how well we drive. So you got to kind of look at that as well.
So I want to talk about resolutions versus goals. So what's the big difference there, and what should someone be thinking about as it relates to goals for this season?
Ideally, goals should be very specific. It should be an absolute thing. I like to, if you're playing darts, if the goal is the bullseye, well, you throw. If you miss, you correct for the bullseye. The more specific you can be about a goal, then the more chance you have to actually make an informed adjustment or correction towards it.
Great. And should those just be put in their head, or should they be documented somewhere, those goals?
Ideally, if you have one big overarching goal, you could keep that in your head. But generally, one big overarching goal requires a set of steps. Sometimes it's something maybe called a plan or an action plan, or just a series of events that you set yourself up for. If your goal is to get up on the roof, you often use a ladder and one step at a time. So some people can keep it all in their head. I think most of us, with as much as we have going on in our lives, even just writing a few simple things down and then revisiting that once in a while and making sure, okay, these are still the goals, or oh yeah, this is the goal.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I see from the circles I run in as it relates to motorsports, a lot of folks say, I want to have my best season. I'm going to go out and I want to place, I want to win the time trial this year. I want to win my class. But yet we're a week ahead of the event and they haven't registered. They need to get their car aligned. And that's usually how I know, because they want to bring it to Atomic to get aligned. And it's like, but we're booked. You should have planned this out better. So where I'm going with this, Michael, is how detailed does, we're not talking IndyCar. We're not talking Formula One. We're talking autocrossers and time trialers. How detailed do they need to be with that plan to ensure that that goal gets achieved?
Well, the details, they matter, okay? So really, it's up to you where you are, but really, most of what all of us need, we often think we need the new, latest and greatest tweak in terms of on-track performance for the car, or that thing for us that's going to make us faster. But really, if we can just get better at the fundamentals. Bill, you mentioned you get these people, it's 1 week out from a race, and now it's time to go to Atomic for that race prep. That likely is something, if you're going out of house and going to a professional, other people are coming at the same time too. So you have to be able to think ahead and really manage your time and resources in such a manner that you shouldn't be panicking as you load up to go to the track. Everything should be orderly and you should be good to go. And that's your car prep. That's you as a driver. That's you having your helmet, your gloves, all of it. And as one person, that can be a lot. So that's, Bill mentioned plans. Well, checklist as well. And Bill's covered that in some of his podcasts. I believe they even have a tool through Atomic that will help you get your driver checklist, helmet, gloves, balaclava, shoes, etc. Mm-hmm. Your car prep. Did I bring, my torque wrench? Did I bring my gas can? There's a lot of very fundamental things that in the melee get missed. So the more ahead of this you can get by having good foundation for you and your car, and some processes like a plan, like a checklist, then the more apt you are to have a smooth, orderly load your trailer, trip to the track, arrive at the track, and event.
I have to tell you, one of the most memorable and enjoyable race weekends was I raced the RX-7 in a 60-minute enduro. And one of the reasons it was so enjoyable is everything was loaded into the trailer 4 days ahead of the event. I was locked and loaded, ready to go. I didn't have to worry. After work, I just hitched it up and headed out to the track. And I think mentally that put me in the right spot to have a good weekend. Now, things can always happen. Things can break, or you can have some issues. But just knowing I didn't have to hustle and run around and what else do I have to toss in the back of the truck that I forgot, it mentally put me in the right spot to have a good, successful weekend.
That's absolutely true, Bill. And without going too deep into it, neuroscience actually shows us once something goes wrong, then we start looking for what is wrong, and we'll find more of that. When we're prepared ahead of time and we've looked around and everything's good, now we are looking for how can I be great today? And what we're looking for, again, that aim, that focus, that goal, if you go into a race thinking what's going to go wrong next, you're going to be looking for that and likely find that. Whereas if you go into a race going, man, we did a great job on prep today, I think I'm really going to be able to carry more exit speed today, you're likely to have that.
Yeah. As we talk about goals and where to focus, and that's kind of what you're talking about there, on track, you look where you want to go, and that's what we need to do with goals. But how important is it to have the right goal set? And here's what I mean. We'll go back to the time trial example. I want to win the class of time trial. But if I also have goals of, well, I want to get sponsors and I want to get this free product and I want to maybe do this over here, we could sometimes set too many goals and get a little bit distracted, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. And again, as we mentioned, as privateers, we've got X amount of bandwidth. If you're the driver, if you're the owner, if you're the truck driver, if you're the car driver, if you're the tire guy, if you're the inside guy, if you're the sponsorship guy, the marketing guy, you've really got to spread that over time. In the off season, there's a lot of time where obviously the car should be a big focus. There's a lot, part of the time you should be a big focus, and then also your marketing or whatnot. So really be aware of where you are in your first year, then say your quarter, your month, your day, your week, and really utilize your time, but also your energy. Most of us we have a day job, we have a family, we have relationships. So we've got to go give that. So do your best for occasionally prioritizing your racing so that you don't just give what's left of you at the end of the day or the week or the month. Occasionally be a little selfish and give the best of yourself to these things. Do your important planning when you feel the sharpest. Do your important race car prep when you feel the most focused and less likely to be distracted. And really learning to manage. People say it's time, but it's also our own energy.
That's so true. I'm going to give you your words back to you. You can't take care of others until you take care of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where that energy comes in. So let's take it off track for a minute. Where do we need to be in our lives to make sure that we are giving everything that we need to our vocation, our family, our relationships? So that part of our life is good and balanced and right so that we can have the enjoyment of being on track. How does somebody prioritize and make sure that they get that important part done?
That's a great question, Bill. And it's also, quite frankly, like it sounds so simple, but it's one of the most challenging things. Again, most of us these days, we're all busy. Most of us are likely overcommitted between our work, our social, our family, our hobby or our passion with racing. And so first, just kind of see where you are or how you feel within yourself. And just the great place to start is just yourself. What's one thing that I think I should be doing that's going to help everything else be better? For some, that might just mean getting to bed by 10 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. For others, it might mean maybe, cutting back on the drinking a little bit. For others, it might mean I need to get out and just start walking every day. Whatever it is, there's no wrong place to start. There's one thing, and really be honest with yourself. What is just the one step that I can take that will begin to improve me? And as you improve, every area and everything that we talk about is going to improve as well.
It's so true. We succeed at work, we succeed at home, we succeed on the track, and it just starts breeding and it just starts happening, and it becomes, repetition in that part of our life. How do you help people with your coaching?
First, I just meet them where they are. And, most people that come to me for coaching, they're all made it pretty far. They've done well in their lives, and they don't always give themselves the credit for that they have. So I acknowledge that and remind them, hey, you've done great. You've overcome a lot. You've worked hard. You've achieved a lot. And you've learned a lot because of that. Now you want to go for more, but you're not sure how. Well, first of all, let's see what's working for you. And what's going really good. How can we take some of those lessons and apply them to the areas where you're not as certain? And then how can we begin to, as we mentioned earlier, create a goal, create a way we can measure it, and just get started knowing for what the first thing you try may not work. It's like, again, Bill, we use driving, you turn in at the 100-foot mark and, you end up pushing out. So next time maybe you back up the corner. So it's the same thing with this. We just start and we try something. The first answer, the first solution very well might not be the right one. That's the beautiful thing about having someone to help you get through this. Oftentimes it's the first attempt is a failure will believe that is a final. But a coach was, hey, that was just a data point. We get to try again. We haven't got there yet. What else do you think we could try? So that's one way a coach helps.
And where did the company name come from, Exceed Transition Coaching?
It's been a sort of an evolving thing, but I like the word exceed because it reminds me a bit of succeed, but also to exceed. So you just go a step beyond. Wherever you think you can go, if you just go a bit farther, you've exceeded expectation. So just a fun play on word. And then I also like the Exceed Transition Coaching is ETC. So it's sort of et cetera, which allows for a lot of possibility.
Right. You've had the luxury and the honor of being a coach to some professional drivers, some very successful business people. Without naming names, what's one outcome that just you were so ecstatic about and just really put a big smile on your face?
That's another great question. There's two things that come to mind. The first one was I was working with a professional driver, and he shared with me after a particularly grueling 12 hours of Sebring where they broke a right rear shock early in the race. And so Sebring is a very, very bumpy track. And so he was getting beat up. And when the last stint came up, it could have been him or another guy getting in the car. And they said, hey, man, you want to do this? And he was physically exhausted. And he wasn't really that excited about it. And the car was running P2 at the time. And he said that he did a few of the exercises that we talked about. And just, these are mostly around just getting back into his body, doing some breathing, just relaxing, resetting. And instead of focusing on what he had to go through to get there and how exhausted he was, now just get back to feeling okay through some breath work and focusing on what he can do and just do the best with what he had left. And he said he went through that exercise. He was able to drive the car to P1 and they won class in the 12 hours of Sebring. And that was pretty cool, just knowing that I came to his mind at the time when he was uncertain, tired, and quite frankly, kind of hurting. He was physically beat up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We did came up then. That felt good to be a part of that, knowing I was along for that ride.
Yeah, literally. Well, not literally, but you were in his head for sure. What's the difference in coaching a driver and a business leader, or are they the same?
Well, no, they're similar how you present it. And it's kind of changing. Oftentimes, and especially when we first start out, most of us are thinking we need to make a big change. And it's going to be hard. And it's going to take a lot of work. Or we're going to have this big aha. And the clouds are going to break. And the light's going to come shining on us. We're going to have that, whoa. The professional drivers realize, and all high-performing people that are at or near the top, they realize they're looking for an incremental difference. They're looking, if they can get a 1% advantage on the next guy, that's all it's going to take for them to win. When you go in just looking for a small thing, A, it's harder to find small things, but B, it seems more manageable.
Oh, absolutely. And you think about it, and I've said this before, I think I may have said it in one of the times you and I chatted on the podcast before, all successful people, whether it's business, sports, they have coaches. Some have multiple coaches. Think about a golfer. Long game, short game, putting.
Absolutely.
Right? Probably a mental coach as well. So a question that comes out of that is, if we need coaches to make us better, why doesn't everybody have a coach?
Bill, you were kind enough to send me the little list of questions at a time, and I did a little bit of research on that. And one of the things is a lot of us, quite frankly, especially, quite frankly, men of a certain age, we've always been taught you have to do it on your own. Just man up and go out there and do it. And that's advice that's been given to a lot of people, but it's also advice that people that tend to stay at or towards the middle believe. Yeah. As you mentioned, the people at the top have coaches. So, okay, I'm here. I'm not happy where I am. And what I've been told and what I'm believing is I have to go it on my own. Well, I think there's more in me. So maybe that information isn't correct. Perhaps I look and see, what about a coach?
I've been around people who are, I would classify, uncoachable. whether that's a driver behind the wheel of one of our race cars, or it's somebody that I'm working alongside of. Can somebody become coachable if they are always against input and advice and mentoring and coaching?
Hypothetically, yes, they can. And it comes down to there's two ways that most people come into coaching. One is suddenly they have a strong purpose that they feel strong. That's now, before this purpose, I didn't have the passion. I didn't have the drive. I didn't have the willingness to say, okay, maybe I'm the issue and help me. And that's a great one. Purpose is a beautiful thing because it's a choice. It's something that we have chosen for ourselves, which shows we actually are being our best. The other thing is necessity. Necessity is usually handed to us. Sometimes it's thrown on us, in a bucket on fire. So again, if you get enough necessity, let's say a guy at work, it's an employee. If the necessity is you're going to be looking for another job if you don't become coachable, that might be what it takes. So those are the things. And ideally, when you get to a point in your life where you're choosing more from purpose, that's a big sign of internal growth. When it's always life forcing you necessity, you may need to look at your decision-making process.
Have you ever coached someone who was uncoachable and either had to walk away or you were able to twist it around?
I've had some uncoachable people, and we basically either they fired me or I have fired them, and that's as it should be. And I'm not always going to be the right coach for a person, just as a manager or a leader might not be the right one. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing, and that's definitely good data. As an employer, you should know when you hire to look for people that fit within your window of manageability. And as a coach, early on, part of my first strategy session, is they're interviewing me, but I'm also interviewing them. And there are some people, quite frankly, I just don't want to work with. I like to work with, high performing people that are in charge and looking to really get a lot done. There's some other people that want to give me great reasons why they can't. And I'm not here to tell them they're wrong. They're just not my client.
Right. Again, they're focusing on the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's refocus on being on the track, the grassroots racer.
Mm-hmm.
They could be thinking, I don't need a coach. I don't know where to start with a coach. Why do I need a coach at this level of motorsports? Well, what would you say to that?
Those are all legitimate perspectives. If you're happy with your car, if you're happy with yourself, and if you're happy with being mid-pack, and that's all you want, you're right. If you want to be better for yourself, for your family, for those in your community, and on track, if you want to be on the podium and you've not got there on your own, then I would suggest getting some help. Maybe it's not a coach. Maybe it's a guy like taking your car to Atomic to get the thing set up so it actually drives, so it actually has brakes, so the pressures and the tires are actually set correctly. Things of this nature are super important. Likely, if you get your car good, then as I mentioned earlier, you're going to have to learn how to be a better driver. Now, I'm not a driving coach. I understand quite a bit about driving. I'm a get you in the right place. If you're frantically prepping your car and then you get into drive, you're going to frantically drive. So helping you to learn, not just, there's a lot of coaches out there that are a mindset. It's actually below the neck. When you're stressed out because of what you had to do to get to the track or get on track, that's who's getting in the car. If you look at professional drivers, a lot of those guys, they're taking naps right before the race. When they first get in the car, they go into start, some sort of meditation or breathing or listen to music. And they're just getting themselves in the perfect place to go out and perform. You're not going to be able to be at that level, but you should have some sort of facsimile of that.
No, that's great. And I think where coaching comes in too is, and I'll think about this from a personal perspective. I'll do a track day during the week. That's not necessarily easy for anybody. But when you put the right pieces in place, it can be possible. You don't have to worry about what's happening back at the office. You don't have to worry about what's happening at home because you've put all the pieces together. Maybe you're working with a coach, or maybe you just, you got it done on your own, and you can have that much more of a relaxed day at the track and really just focus in on either having fun, dialing the car in, doing some testing, doing some networking. That could make for a great day, but it's has to be planned and it has to be executed properly.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, Bill, because that's the other thing too, that one of the things I love working about people that drive a race car is most of them admit when they're doing well and it's going well, they're in the car and they're not thinking about anything else than driving that car. That degree of focus is a powerful thing. And it's also rare for most of us. Not everyone gets the chance to have that. And again, racing and driving a car at its limits demands it. We have to be 100% focused and present to have a shot at making that turn flat, right? Of putting together whether it's a 10 lap or a 20 or 40 lap, whatever race, as many, great laps as possible requires everything that we've got. So when we can learn that and experience it on track, we can use that same skill set to go just knock the office out of the park. We can use that same skill set to going home to our wife and just giving her all of our focus and all of our love for, quite frankly, a much shorter chunk of time. And she is going to respond beautifully to that. So that's a beautiful thing about coaching people is they don't realize where some areas of their lives can be applied to others to make everybody else happier.
Yeah. For me, when that helmet goes on, the rest of the world goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very nice escape. Sure, it's a lot of fun and the adrenaline's going too, but I'll tell you what, and I'll tell you, there's been times when the world starts to creep in and I pull myself right off track because I got to get that out so that I can, have a clear mind and clear vision on track. So with clear vision, we talked about goals and setting, smart, realistic goals, documenting them and revisiting them. I want to talk about, that's early part of the year. What happens as the year goes on? How do we adjust? How do we hold ourselves accountable? What best practices do you have for revisiting those goals and then holding ourselves accountable?
It's another great question, Bill. And big thing is just, always just look at how you're doing. How am I feeling and how am I performing? How are things looking? Does my car look like it's a fast, well cared for car? Do I look like I'm put together? So just if you're good where you're at, great. What do I need to be better? Or if you're not quite happy with one area, if one area is just not quite up to spec, okay, again, what's the one thing I need to do to get that trending in the right direction? And again, whenever possible, get some help. Nobody gets it. There's no championship driver that did it all by themselves. There's no top, business person, whatever it is, get some help.
Beautiful. So let's say they want to use you for that help. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
There'll be some links with this, Michael Ribas, Exceed Transition Coaching. You can Google me. I offer a special at the end of this podcast, and I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on the socials, so plenty of ways to get hold of me. And just the first time we talk, it's called a discovery session. That's free, and that's just us learning a little bit about each other to see if it makes sense to make that their first step.
Beautiful. What other advice, what other topics did you want to talk about as it relates to getting the year started and people being their best?
First and foremost, and this is, I say, where I meet people, and this is a big challenge for most of us. First, just accept who you are, exactly how you are. And that sounds like what? But a lot of us fight or internalize a lot of stuff. So just accept this, wherever I'm at right now. There's some stuff in my life that's not going great. There's some parts about myself I would like to improve. We have to get that baseline. We have to know where the car is in order to actually begin to fix it. So accept where you are and then just decide on what area that you want to focus on improving.
I love that. Listeners, Michael has walked us through how to be better in life, how to be better on track. And it comes from goal setting, understanding where you are as an individual right now, putting together a plan in place. So, Michael, let's talk about that strategy session. Normally $300, but you have a special offer for the listener. What is that?
Yeah, for this, I'm going to knock 50% off it. It's $150. It's a great value. You get 60 minutes of a structured process where we're going to take you through and the very things that we've covered here. We're going to help you generate some clarity. Oftentimes people just don't know what to do. Perfectly common. You're not alone in that. So just help you generate some clarity. As you get a little more clear, then you know what to do. As Bill mentioned, the visor goes down. If the visor still has the protective cover on it, you can't see that well. Let's just peel that off. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Now you have some clarity. Then we're going to look at your energy. So now that's how much gas does this corner need? Sometimes you don't need gas in this corner. You just need to coast. At the start, you need gas, but not too much. You don't want to be spinning your tires. We can all spin the tires and make a lot of smoke, but that ain't the fast way around. So we'll help you learn to manage your energy. Then we'll look a little bit where are some courage things. We all have a place where we can step up. We all have a place where we're going to have to say, hey, that's me. I need to do better. We'll look at some productivity as we cover here too. We have a lot of stuff going on. Let's just get rid of some distractions, get super focused on some outcomes. And then finally, influence. We'll help you generate some of that. Who can you ask with your car prep? Where's a great place to go? By now, hopefully you all know about Atomic for your race prep, or, who's a great guy who can help me, tune my engine? Who's a great guy who can help me tune my head? Get some influence. Who can help? The big thing that a lot of people don't know is at one level of life, kind of where, quite frankly, most of us are, we're asking how. The guys at the very top are asking who. They don't want to waste the time. They want to go right to the expert. You're not going to become an expert in everything. Our lives aren't long enough for that. So go to the expert. So I'll help you get a game plan in order. It'll be manageable, one small thing at a time. All of a sudden, where you had no clarity, you're going to have clarity. You're going to have a plan. You're going to have some goals. And then you're going to go out and actually do those things and have the best season of your life.
That's awesome. If anyone needs a testimonial or wants to talk about Michael's work, you're welcome to contact me. I will tell you what it's like to work with him. I highly encourage you, if you want to have your best season yet, to reach out to Michael. And there's there's a couple benefits, Michael. Right now, you're going to make someone better and you're going to save them money. The one thing is they're probably not going to be late to grid if they got their whole act together.
Let's hope not. There's no worse feeling than being late to grid.
That's right. That's the worst way to roll on the track. Well, Michael, I want to thank you for being on the podcast again. What you shared is awesome. We'll put links in the show notes to people to connect with you, take advantage of that offer. And again, you said the initial discovery call is free, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, I highly encourage everyone to at least talk to Michael and see if it makes sense for them. So, Michael, thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you, Bill. It's always wonderful to be on Late to Grid, and look forward to hearing all kinds of great stuff out of Atomic Autosports coming up this year.